Netflix $23, Disney $14, HBO Max $17, Apple TV Plus $10, Hulu $18, and this list could go on. In recent times, there has been an explosion of streaming platforms. Let's say I want to watch Lord of the Rings. Even if I subscribe to all the servers I just mentioned, I still need to subscribe to another servers to watch it. It is ridiculous. Now let's assume money isn't the problem for you and you subscribe to every possible service. Here's the sad part. You still get a terrible experience for your money. I know people who are subscribed to all these platforms but still resort to piracy. Why, you might ask? Because these platforms use DRM, which restricts the resolution and doesn't let you change it. For example, even though I'm subscribed to Netflix 4K plan, the stream on my TV is locked at 720p. Yet, if I pirate the content, I can watch it in highest quality, even in 4K Blu-ray. So in the end, someone who doesn't pay for the content has a better experience than me. This isn't just about streaming services either. It's happening across industries. Games, software, ebooks, educational platforms, etc. Software that you used to be able to buy with a one-time payment now demands a monthly subscription. What companies really want from you is this: to own nothing, pay monthly, and become a renter. In this video, I'll explain why the subscription system is fucked and why piracy is becoming increasingly justified. Let me one thing clear. I'm not advocating piracy. In fact, let me check my Steam account real quick. I don't know if you can see it, but I have 99 games in my library. I've also been subscribed to Xbox Game Pass for 2 whole years, but in my ideal world, the content I purchase should give me a better experience than what pirates get. And this is where the problems begin, paying for a terrible experience. Let's look at a recent Reddit comment to understand this better. I hadn't gone without the internet for a long time. The other night, there was a maintenance work on the infrastructure, and I wouldn't have internet for a day. I thought I'd use free time to play some games, but I couldn't open my games on Epic Games, Steam, Xbox Game Pass, Battle.net, or Ubisoft Connect. It was ridiculous, and I found the only game I could play was the one I had pirated to review. Despite paying for my games, the only one I could play was the pirated game. This is where the problem begins. This user bought their games legally, but buying them didn't mean they owed them. It just made them a renter. If they had pirated the games instead, they would have been able to access to their games freely. Despite paying for games, they were locked out. And it's not just about playing games offline. DRM can also lower the quality and affect the performance of your games. A well-known example is Resident Evil Village. I bought the game, but someone who pirated it had a better frame rate and smoother gameplay than I did. So what should we say to the companies? If I bought the game and can play it offline, it's my right to play pirated versions. If someone who pirated the game gets better performance, again, it's my right to pirate it. And if you think Steam is great for games, think again. Steam is the king of DRM platforms. Yes, they've had a customer-friendly approach for a long time, and I appreciate that. But if you read the fine print in their terms, you'll see that you don't actually own the games you buy on Steam. You're renting them. Steam can remove games from account anytime, and if Steam ever shuts down, you'll lose your entire library naturally. Another example, Ubisoft recently faced rumors that it would delete accounts, including those with purchased games, if they were inactive for a long time. Ubisoft quickly denied the rumors, but where there is smoke, there is fire. In short, you have no ownership over the games you think you bought. I wish this problem was limited to gaming industry, but it's not. Take the streaming industry. I paid $23 to Netflix to watch 4K content. But when I open Netflix, what do I see? I'm locked at 720p. Can I change the resolution? No. DRM doesn't allow you to adjust the quality. So despite paying $23 for 4K, I'm stuck with what Netflix dictates. Maybe the system decides the 720p is what should I get, but I have no control over it. And yes, some might you say, there are browser extensions that let you fix this issue if you search Google. But think about it, man, come on. If you are paying $23 a month for a service and still need to troubleshoot it through Google, there's no between that and piracy. Piracy, in fact, offers less hassle at this point. And let me share you a personal experience. I'm a subscriber to Amazon Prime, but I couldn't watch The Boys on Prime Video. Why, you might ask? Because Prime Video doesn't provide HD quality on Linux devices, and I use a Linux-based device. So, as a paying customer to Amazon Prime, I was unable to watch The Boys. I need to watch from a friend, if you know what I mean. Sony recently announced that they will be removing shows purchased through the PlayStation Store from their platform. Keep in mind, these aren't rentals or subscription content. These are the shows you bought, meaning you own the license and you should be able to watch them forever. But Sony planned to remove them entirely from the platform. After a huge public backlash, they backed up. But what if the public hadn't spoken up? Sony would have removed content you paid to own forever. That is the real theft. Imagine buying something that's supposed to be yours forever, but having it taken away from you. The platform still exists, but content is gone. And here's the sad part. If I pirated the shows, I could have kept them forever, stored in my hard drive. The situation is even worse in software industry. Adobe used to sell its software for a one-time payment, and you could use that version forever. But because Adobe is greedy and monopolistic, they switched to a subscription model. Now you have to pay, let me check it. Yeah, £28 a month to access their software. And oh wait. What? It's for the first 3 months. Then it jumps to £58 a month. And the worst part, Adobe can suspend your subscription at any time for no reason, and you can just lose all of your projects. I know this because it happened to someone in Turkey. If I hadn't paid for Adobe and had pirated their software, I wouldn't have these problems in the first place. To make matters worse, if you cancel your subscription early, Adobe charges you extra. They make it as difficult as possible to cancel, which is why the US Federal Trade Commission, FTC, now targeting Adobe. We'll see what happens in years to come. Many companies are switching to subscription models because they are highly profitable. Microsoft Office, AutoCAD, these were all one-time purchases, and now they are subscriptions. There are countless examples like this. And if you are watching this far into the video, you are probably realized that the problem isn't just about subscriptions. The real issue is that if I pirated the product, I would get a much better experience than with a subscription. So, long story short, my main argument in this video is this. If pirating gives me a better experience than paying the product, then the piracy becomes justified. And I said before, don't forget, the subscription model is so valuable and profitable for companies that they are trying to turn everything into subscription. Twitter and Meta's blue checkmark for subscription. Why did something was once free become paid? BMW even tried to make their seat heaters in their cars subscription-based, charging people for features that were already physically installed in the car. They only backed down after public outrage. Now let's look at the other side of the coin. Despite everything I said, some white kings will come along and say things like, piracy is theft, you are thieves, innovation is dying because of you, and you are killing artists by pirating. Are those claims true? No, they are all wrong. First, we need to clarify what is stealing and what is theft. Let's say I own a grocery store and I sell milk. If you come into my store and steal my milk, I can no longer sell that milk and I lose money. But if you copy my milk, I lose nothing and I can continue selling it. Judging a hungry child on street or anyone else for copying your milk is absurd. It's absolute nonsense because you are not losing anything. Your milk is still there. Piracy and stealing are absolutely not the same thing. Now think about from this angle. What if the person who bought the milk ends up having a worst experience? What if the seller isn't offering fresh milk? In that case, if I go and copy the existing milk, it still isn't theft because despite buying the product, You are giving me a worse experience. You are giving me milk that isn't fresh. There have been hundreds of studies on whether piracy affects original sales positively or negatively. You can find research on both sides. Some say piracy reduces sales, while others say piracy increases them. But we need to look at each study closely, because most don't reflect the real situation, often presenting incorrect correlation data. For example, they look at whether sales increases when piracy visits increases, or find other bizarre correlation viral, searching for causality. But correlation is not causality. And if you look at these studies carefully, you can find a grain of truth on both sides. Take PC Projekt Red, for example, one of our favorite publishers. Why does everyone love them? Because they release their games without DRM, and they don't seem to be suffering because of it. From my own observation and conversations, I've seen that piracy increases sales. Of course, I can't provide this scientifically, but I see it clearly. And I believe piracy actually has positive impact on original works. If you don't believe me, listen to famous author Neil.
I also got very grumpy because I felt like they were pirating my stuff, that it was bad. And then I started to notice that two things seemed much more significant. One of which was places where I was being pirated, particularly Russia, where people were translating my stuff into Russian and spreading it out into the world. I was selling more and more books. People were discovering me through being pirated. And then they were going out and buying the real books. And when a new book would come out in Russia, it would sell more and more copies. And I thought that was fascinating. And I tried a few experiments. And some of them were quite hard. You know, persuading my publisher, for example, to take one of my books and put it out for free. And we took American Gods, a book that was still selling and selling very well, and for a month they put it up completely free on their website, and you could read it and you could download it, and what happened was sales of my books through independent bookstores, because that was all we were measuring it through, went up the following month 300%. And I started to realize that actually you're not losing books, you're not losing sales by having stuff out there. And when I give a big talk now on these kind of subjects, and people say, well, what about the sales that I'm losing through having stuff copied, through having stuff floating out there? I started asking audiences to just raise their hands for one question, which is I say, okay, do you have a favorite author? And they say yes. And I say, good. What I want is for everybody who discovered their favorite author by being lent a book, put up your hands. And then anybody who discovered your favorite author by walking into a bookstore and buying a book, raise your hands. And it's probably about 5–10%, if that, of the people actually discovered an author who is their favorite author, who is the person they buy everything of, and they buy the hardbacks, and they treasure the fact that they've got this author. Very few of them bought the book. They were lent it. They were given it. They did not pay for it. And that's how they found their favorite author. And I thought, you know, that's really all this is. It's people lending books. And you can't look on that as a lost sale. It's not a lost sale. Nobody who would have bought your book is not buying it because they can find it for free. What you're actually doing is advertising. You're reaching more people. You're raising awareness. And understanding that gave me a whole new idea of the shape of copyright and of what the web was doing. Because the biggest thing the web is doing is allowing people to hear things, allowing people to read things, allowing people to see things that they might never have otherwise seen. And I think basically that's an incredibly good thing.
So is piracy really killing innovation? The younger generation that consumes more books and games are mostly people who wouldn't be able to afford these products anyway. Doesn't their consumption create a butterfly effect? Maybe some of these individuals end up on the production side one day. In the future, people who were influenced by these products might take their lives in different directions and become creators themselves. Most people who create content wouldn't have put it in the first place. Copying your product didn't take anything from you, but it added tremendous value to them. Haven't you experienced like this? For example, you couldn't afford a game or book in the past, so you pirated it. Later, didn't you end up buying the original? Or didn't you purchase more books from that author? Or didn't you buy future games from that studio? This has happened to me many times, and I have heard similar stories from others. If piracy is so harmful, then why do authors like Neil Gaiman sell more books after their work has been pirated? Most of what you think you know about piracy is propaganda. They tell you things to make you believe what they want, and you end up buying into it. Then what happens? They sell you trash services, and because of their propaganda, you keep buying them. Meanwhile, the people who pirate the services are having a much better experience than you. Now, let's talk about the hypocrisy of these companies. The same companies that cry and push propaganda about piracy is theft, stole all books and videos for their AI training. They used copyrighted books and videos for their own benefit in training AI, and then shamelessly say in court, if we hadn't used this, AI wouldn't have reached this level, innovation wouldn't have come to this far. So the conclusion here is like this: if you, as an individual who couldn't afford a book, download an ebook file from online archive, you are a thief. But when companies use copyrighted books and videos to train AI for their own profit, they are innocent. And then they sell you the AI they train it with those materials. They don't even make it publicly available for free. They sell it to you for a price. When they sell it, it's called innovation. But when you try to access a book or game you couldn't afford, it's called theft. So my advice is this: before downloading any content, run it through your own critical thinking filter and don't follow the propaganda that piracy is theft. According to these companies, they are the real thieves. Personally, I am not rich, but I am not very poor either. I can afford to subscribe to services and pay for the software. But if, as a company, you offer me a worse experience than piracy after I paid the product, then I believe it's my right to use piracy. So what should we do? First of all, avoid subscription services whenever possible, and opt for open source software whenever you can. Open source software allows you to truly own the software. When you use open source software, you own the entire application from top to bottom. If open source software isn't possible, at least support companies like DaVinci Resolve that offer one-time license purchases. Try to buy products from companies that give you ownership rights. The current system tries to convince you that not owning anything is better and pushing you towards subscription models. Everyone is rolling subscription services, but don't fall for it. And while we are talking honest about subscription models, you might also want to check out the video I'll talk about how companies manipulate us into constantly seeking the new and driving our consumption habits. Just click here to watch.